So, the N64 Nintendo Switch Online service has finally launched, and people have had a lot to say about it. I'm not gonna lie, I was also going to make a video on the topic, but I think everybody's already said more than enough to get the message across. Essentially, this expansion pack is a bit of a scam. Not for the poor emulation that barely competes with open source software made by fans, not for the poor netcode or graphical oddities, but for the massive price tag attached to it that anybody would have a really hard time justifying. £35 a year for this service is just not a good deal in my opinion, jumping up a whole £17 more than the standard subscription. That extra money nets you the N64 library of games, which in my opinion is too small at the moment with only 8 games at launch. It also gets you the Animal Crossing Happy Home Paradise DLC, which is very situational on whether this is a good deal or not. It basically all depends on if you like or even own Animal Crossing, but even then I'm sure most people would just prefer to spend the one-off price of £22.50 and never have to worry about it again. Finally, we have the surprising inclusion of the SEGA Genesis library. I'm sure this came as a shock to most people, myself included, who only anticipated N64 games when watching the Direct. At first I thought it was a surprising but neat inclusion, but as time went on and more information came out about the expansion pack, specifically the price, the inclusion of the Genesis games felt more and more of an oddity, and with all the controversy of the N64 games going around, not many people seem to be talking about it. So let's jump in and analyse what else Nintendo are offering us here. So the library comes with 14 games at launch, and some notable inclusions are Sonic 2, Castlevania Bloodlines, Contra, Rystar, and Streets of Rage 2. This library seems okay at first, but I do find it a baffling decision that Sonic 1, CD, and Sonic 3 and Knuckles are missing here. Sonic 2 is quite often the most popular of the four amongst casual audiences, so it makes sense that they chose this one. But Sonic 1 not being available at launch for a SEGA Genesis service just feels a bit wrong. CD is a bit of a weird one due to its dependencies on the SEGA CD add-on, so complications arise there when attempting to properly emulate the hardware, and that might mean that it needs a bit more time in the oven to make sure it's ready. But that's even if they choose to bother putting in the effort to make it work. The Christian Whitehead version of Sonic CD is considered to be essentially a remake and an entirely new engine built from the ground up. And Sega CD is still yet to be emulated by Sega at all. However, third-party Sega CD emulation has been achieved by multi-platform emulators like Kega Fusion and BizHawk, so it's definitely not impossible. Finally, we have Sonic 3 and Knuckles. This game has had some copyright complications in the past, to say the least, due to Michael Jackson's rumoured involvement in the soundtrack. So for a long time, Sega opted to keep Sonic 3 out of Genesis collections just to avoid trouble altogether. However, the collection of Sonic Origins slated for release next year seems to include the games. Whether Sega will opt to compose an entirely new soundtrack to avoid lawsuits is unclear, but I think it is highly unlikely we will see this game on the NSO service, which is a shame because it is considered to be the best one. Speaking of Sonic Origins, will Sega even want to release these games on this service if it could potentially hurt the sales of their new collection? I guess only time will tell. Enough about the library though. I want to talk more about Nintendo's decision to include this as part of the service in the first place. As we've discussed, the library is decent, bar a few glaring Sonic-shaped holes, but even if this was the most extensive library of Genesis games, it wouldn't exactly matter to most consumers because Sega Genesis games are already very widely obtainable. Seriously, Sega loves shitting these things out. Their most recent one, Sega Mega Drive and Genesis Classics is easily the penultimate one, and that's for a few main reasons. Firstly being the fact that it is available on 4 different platforms, 6 if you include the Xbox Series X and PS5. The emulation used here is great and shows hardly any problems and gives the user plenty of options for them to shape their own experience, something that Nintendo is apparently allergic to. The hub, or main interface, or whatever you want to call it, is really cool. It gives really nostalgic vibes and shows that a lot of love and care went into this collection, much better than some stinky boring cover art. Finally, the Steam version is just brilliant. Not only is it often on sale, meaning you can buy a whole 58 games for super cheap, but you can also just buy the games you want individually and be done with it. That's for those of you who want to play Sonic 2 but just can't stand to own Echo the Dolphin. Even better is, they managed to get Sonic 3 on here. It's not available on the console version sadly, but at least it is here to some degree. However, possibly the greatest feature to come out of this collection is the ability to straight up buy the ROM files. Seriously, all you need to do is go into your games file directory and boom, uncompressed ROM files of all the games that you've bought. An accessible way to buy ROMs. A pirate's worst nightmare. I love this from Sega because they are essentially supporting the Genesis emulation community here. Don't like our emulator? Fine, just take the ROM and get out of here. This essentially means that you can use whatever emulator you like to play the games you own. For example, I bought Sonic 3 and Knuckles on Steam, but I patched the ROM file with a fan-made remaster called Sonic 3 Air, so I can play the game in a full widescreen with a ton of other options. In conclusion, I just find it so weird that the Genesis was included in the expansion pack at all. If you think about it, who does this even appeal to? If you're a big fan of Sega or the Genesis, then chances are you already own these games due to the widely accessible options already on offer. And with the NSO service offering nothing much more to compete apart from a fucked up netcode, you're really not appealing to anyone. In my opinion, the expansion pack would have been a whole lot more appealing if it included some harder to play Nintendo games. There were a lot of rumours for Game Boy and Game Boy Advance games before the Direct, and I have to say I'm quite disappointed that we didn't get them in favour of the Genesis. But that's just a missed opportunity for Nintendo, and another reason why emulators like Visual Boy Advance, Dolphin, and Desmume still come out on top.
One!